I decided to write my analytical research argument paper on the war on drugs and why I believe it to be a failure. In 1971, President Richard M. Nixon stated that we had to launch a war on drugs and make tougher drug laws because of the growing use of drugs among America's youth. Now, many of his points were valid, such as that drugs are bad in terms of for your health and they will kill your body, and they really don't offer much of a benefit when used regularly in excess. Now, while that is true, the concept of launching war and spending money to fight drugs has been proven both to be dangerous and really not that successful. In fact, it's been really not successful at all. My first problem that I find with the war on drugs is the growth of the amount of people in prison. In 1971, the amount of people in prison was roughly 200,000. Today, it's 1.6 million, and 500,000 of them are in for drug violations. That means that more than double the amount of people, that the amount of people in prison right now for drugs is actually more than double of the entire prison population 42 years ago. And the problem with this is, I don't understand why you would take a person who's addicted to drugs, who's more than likely having issues, and is using drugs as a coping mechanism, and basically putting them in a place and saying, well, we gotta remove them from society because they're gonna be bad for society, so we'll put them in this place with other criminals. Yet, you're putting a person who's probably on the edge mentally and saying, alright, here you go. And we'll put you in with murderers, rapists, people that commit assaults, things like that. And then you put them in there 10 to 15 years, what do you think they're going to be like when they come out? Probably going to be more violent, have a criminal mindset, and their drug problem is not going to be any better. In fact, it's probably in most cases going to be a lot worse. Along with my complaint about the war on drugs, I believe we're putting way too much power into the hands of the drug dealers themselves. When you have something and it's illegal, yet a lot of people want it, they will find ways to get it. It's been around since the beginning of time. So, basically, people that want to use drugs have to put their trust in drug dealers who can basically do whatever they want because, hey, what they're doing is illegal anyway. So, you say, alright, I'm going to go buy some heroin. And the drug dealer says, oh, well, here, I'm going to up the price $300. And you go, well, I don't want to pay that. And he goes, okay, that's cool because I got people down the street that'll pay for it, and so I don't need your money. And what's he supposed to do? He can't say, well, I'll call the cops because what are you going to say? Oh, I went to go buy heroin from this guy, but he charged me too much. See, you can't do it. On the flip side of that also, drug dealers can mess with their products any way that they please because, again, it's illegal, so they can do what they want. You go to buy some cocaine, they mix a little heroin in there. They don't have to tell you. It's illegal. You go to buy some marijuana, you think, I'll smoke some pot this weekend. It's no big deal. They decide to put some glass cleaner in it, make it like crystal meth, basically. Again, they can do it because it's illegal. They can do whatever they want. So for this reason, I believe what would happen if we legalized drugs is that we could make them safer for the general population. Now, well, there will always be negatives to using heroin. It will always kill your body. Same with cocaine, same with crystal meth. If you have it where you know what you're getting, you know specifically what you're getting, and they put warning labels on like they do with alcohol, where it says don't drive under the influence of alcohol or use heavy machinery, and with smoking where it says this product may cause cancer. If they say overuse of this product may kill you, and you know that, and you choose to use it, I don't see that as a problem. And I believe that that knowledge is power, and also getting the drug dealer out of society would be a very, very great benefit to fighting against people dying for just no reason, and allowing people to make millions of dollars basically feeding off people's addictions, which I think is just completely sad. Another thing I think that would come about if we did away with the war on drugs is then we could actually more adequately help people to get help, because a lot of times I think that the biggest issue is people are on drugs and we put them in prison. Why not, instead of putting them in prison, as I mentioned the problems with the prison system earlier, rather than putting them in prison, why don't we help them getting to counseling? If they want help, rather than and just do that, put them in counseling, get them to a therapist, help them out, not put them in a jail cell so they can be taught how to commit crimes and be intimidated and scared and come out and be completely derailed to the point of no return. Of particular note, I found that the prohibition on cannabis to be just completely ridiculous in every way. Basically because, number one, with the prohibition of cannabis, medicinal research has been hindered. And number two, cannabis is not as dangerous, I believe, as once perceived. There was a long-standing belief that cannabis was the gateway drug, which basically means you smoke cannabis and then you go on to harder drugs. You'll build up a tolerance to cannabis, and eventually you'll be like, oh, okay, I need something stronger, so then you use coke and heroin. That's never been proven, and based on what I've seen, I don't believe that to be true at all. The other part of that medicinal research, there have been studies conducted which have been used to see if cannabis could be used as an alternative medicine rather than taking prescription medicines. And the University of California Center for Medical Cannabis Research did a study in February 2010 in which they did a placebo-type study which involved the inhaling of cannabis. And what they found was, of those that inhaled cannabis, the majority of them saw consistent pain relief for various symptoms related to diabetes, heart disease, MS, cancer, AIDS, HIV. And to me, if this is able to help people with pain, or in some instances with anorexic patients who are having trouble eating, or things along those lines, if this will help people to with their ailments, I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to say, I want this, I don't want hydrocodone pain pills, I don't want OxyContin pain pills, I would rather just have some marijuana, and that's what I want to take, and I believe that people should have the right to choose that if they so please. And that was my presentation on the war on drugs and why it is failing.